So, I've had a few questions in regards to boundaries in relationships, and so I thought I'd jump on and create a video and share 7 tips to navigating boundaries in relationships. So, I find something that's really, really important is transparency. So, when we're communicating in relationships, whether that's intimate partners, friendships, colleagues, family, whoever it is, I feel like we really need more transparency to really just be who we are, to share what we want to share, to be absolutely clear rather than trying to kind of tiptoe, walking on eggshells, being so mindful of like, is what I'm going to say going to be hurtful? How are they going to take it? And so we kind of try and like tiptoe around people's feelings, and then we don't actually get this clear message across, and then there's confusion, which leads to conflict. And so I just find if we can be absolutely transparent, then we can really have that clarity. They can know where we're coming from. We know that we've been heard, and it just really clears the space and will allow you to move through any challenges and have deeper conversations. I also find another piece of this is authenticity. So tuning into where you're coming from, where is this, whatever you're addressing with this person, where is it really coming from? Because what can happen a lot is with relationships, we can be coming from a wounded place or from a trauma or a past hurt or a belief or a story. And so it's like, well, am I really coming to this conversation as my authentic self, taking responsibility from my part, and then speaking with authenticity? So, number 1, transparency. Number 2, authenticity in your conversations. And some of these really all of these 7 tips, they're really interconnected. So if those 2 aren't completely clear just yet, just stay with me and you'll notice that with authenticity, there's also this element of projecting and blaming that I'm going to be going into. So this can really help to get clear on how do I know that I'm being my authentic self. And so we're going to get to that. So just stay with me for a few more moments. Another piece is coming to the table with a clear intention for what you're trying to communicate. So sometimes we're coming to the conversation with our boundary or with our need, and we're kind of coming from maybe a criticism place where we're criticizing that something's been crossed, or we're asking for a need, but we're coming from that place of you should have already met this. And so there's already kind of that resentment, that tension, that pain point that hasn't really been dealt with. And so we really want to get clear on what our intention is. And when we can voice that intention clearly, with transparency, with authenticity, you'll find that the person that you're communicating with will be able to soften and open and be more receptive to what you're sharing. If you come into the conversation with you did this or you need to do this, and you're pointing that finger, instantly that other person is going to tense up, shut down, and not receive what you're saying. And so what I mean by coming to the conversation with intention is, before you even approach that person, ask yourself, why am I having this conversation? What is the benefit for me for having this conversation? What is the benefit for them? And if you can find the benefit for both of you, you'll find that you're both more open and receptive to navigating that conversation together. So for an example, if you're wanting to set a boundary or ask for a need with an intimate partner, and it's like, this boundary or this need is going to allow us to become closer, we're going to feel more connected, I'm going to feel safer to be open with you, and because I feel safe, I'm going to be more receptive and more affectionate, and this is going to really deepen our relationship. If you went to that person and said that first, of like, hey, I wanted to chat to you about something, would it be okay to talk to you now? And this is, again, another piece of the puzzle of communicating your boundaries within relationships, is actually asking if they're in a good space for that conversation, because we want to make sure that they're not stressed out, overwhelmed, distracted, and not in the right space to have this conversation. So just checking in first, and then share your intention of like, well, my intention with sharing this with you is because I feel like this will really allow us to get closer. Well, it'll allow us to deepen our connection. When you share the benefits, you'll notice that other person starts to soften, starts to open, and they get on board because it's something that they're going to want as well. So you're really getting clear on the benefits for the both of you. And that way, they're actually going to be more receptive to meeting that need or honoring that boundary. And it's a really, really powerful tool. It'll just really allow you to effectively move through any confrontation, anxiety, nervousness around having that conversation, and you'll find that that conversation will be so much deeper, so much more fulfilling, empowering, and enjoyable. So, number one, transparency. Just lay it out all on the table with mindfulness, with heartfulness. Authenticity, coming from your authentic place. Know why you're having this conversation, where you're coming from, whether it's your wounded place or whether it's your inner knowing, your centeredness. Having a clear intention, asking that person if they're ready to have that conversation. Just check my notes here. So another one that's really important is to take a pause when you need it, and even let the other person know that it's okay for them to take a pause. This is really important because these conversations in relationships, especially when it's coming to boundary setting and meeting each other's needs, it can bring up a lot of confrontation, a lot of nervousness, a lot of emotional triggers, pain that hasn't been resolved, resentment, and lots of different things can come up. So if you're starting to notice that you're getting reactive or they're getting reactive, there's triggers or there's it's getting heated, I really highly recommend taking a pause in that moment and going and taking some space and dealing with what's been coming up. Same with them. If there's stuff coming up with them, just say, hey, I can feel that this is getting a little uncomfortable. There's some things coming up. Let's just take a pause here. Let's take a breather, and we'll come back when we're both in a more clear centered space. Is that all right with you? And just really being really mindful, because sometimes we are so focused, and often we're really focused on how that person has hurt us or the fear of them hurting us. And so we can be so consumed in our own stuff that we aren't actually mindful of what they're going through. And so if we can hold space and have more compassion for ourselves and for them, you're going to find that these conversations flow so much more smoothly. So now I'm going to be coming back to projection and blaming. So this is really deeply connected with the authenticity that I was talking about, to really know where you're coming from. And so in relationships, it's very common for us to project our pain, our stuff onto someone else and kind of blame them and say, well, you're not doing this, you're not doing this. What I've realized for me and a lot of my clients is that when we actually bring the mirror up, we can actually see areas where we're not doing those things that we're complaining about them not doing. We can see areas where it's actually something within us that's unresolved that we're projecting onto another. So I'll give you an example of this. It was maybe sometime last year. I had set my intention for the month, which I do every month, and I wanted to work through some of the resentment I was holding. And in the moment I set this intention, I felt like this resentment was at my partner, and he wasn't showing up for me, he wasn't supporting me. These were the stories I was telling myself. And when I set that intention, it set a series of experiences in motion. And what I found was, what came up for me about a couple of weeks after setting this intention was the realization that actually I wasn't showing up for me. I hadn't been supporting me. And this was a repetitive pattern that had been happening for much of my life. And so it was bringing up these pain points from years prior of these times where I had a big dream and I kept giving up on myself again and again and again. I'd get scared and I would give up and I would run away and hide. And so I wasn't showing up for myself. I wasn't supporting myself to move through the pain that I was in so that I could create my dreams and live my dreams. now I'm on this path where I have been doing the work, I have been feeling the feelings, navigating my wounds, and really creating an incredible life and the business that I'm so passionate about and a family that I love so deeply. And I felt what was coming up with these wounds from the past of this resentment that I had at myself. So I was actually projecting my resentment at my partner and blaming him for not showing up, for him not supporting. And when I'm in that energy, how can I really expect him to want to show up when I'm projecting this negative energy at him and I'm blaming him for something that I'm not able to take responsibility for? Of course, someone is not going to want to show up for you in that energy. When I moved through this experience and started to really integrate this wound, and I shared my realization with him, I took responsibility for what I was feeling, a massive shift in our relationship, and we started to come closer together. He started to show up more, he started to support me more, and it was really powerful. It's like I wasn't doing this to create that outcome, but it was a ripple effect of me doing my own inner work. So noticing, just asking yourself, what am I feeling? What is here for me? Is there a projection happening? Especially if you're noticing that you are pointing the finger, you are blaming, you're feeling triggered. Really, triggers reveal to you that there's something unresolved within you. This is something that I go much deeper into in my programs and when I'm working with clients. But it's really noticing that triggers are teachers. They're really showing you what's unresolved so that we can resolve it. And so if you're feeling triggered, if you're feeling really blamey and projecty and just throwing stuff at people and just getting really upset, like he should have done this, she should have done this, I can't believe they did this, I can't believe they said this, and we're just so focused on what someone else is doing, I invite you to really bring up that mirror and really look within yourself of where am I maybe showing up in this similar way, or maybe where have I shown up in this way in the past. And what is here for me? What is here for me to heal, to resolve, to see, to witness or acknowledge? How can I take radical responsibility for my life? Because that's when we take our power back. So really, really important. Another piece that came up was noticing if you're grasping in relationships, if you're like that neediness, like I need their love, I need them to accept me, I need them to do this for me. And it's like we have needs, and it's important to let people know who you're in relationship, what your needs are, but your needs are coming from your authentic place and what you desire to receive and also give in relationship. But when it's neediness, that's a very different energy, and it's like we're grasping for this thing and there's this codependency. And I notice with this that there is quite often childhood wounding here, where our needs weren't met when we were in our childhood, when we were in early adolescence. There were certain needs that weren't being met, and so we became this kind of almost like this anxious attachment, and we're just like kind of grasping for that need to be met, to be loved, to be seen, to be heard, to be accepted, to belong, to fit in. And so that's when this kind of people pleasing can come through, and this kind of nagging and sometimes manipulating to try and get what we want. So that's another piece that we really want to become aware of in this process of setting boundaries in relationships, because you'll find when we do this inner work, it's much easier and smoother to set authentic boundaries, to be in your power, to feel confident, to have healthy, fulfilling, empowering relationships. So all of these things are interconnected. Let me see what else I've got down here. I just don't want to forget anything. Yeah, and so when it is coming to your needs, just noticing if you're actually meeting your own needs, because often we are seeking our needs to be met externally all the time. And so yes, we're going to have needs in relationships. We have a desire of how we want our relationships to be, or what we want to experience, what we want to receive from them, what we want to give to them. But also noticing that there are needs that we actually need to meet for ourselves. And if we can't meet our own needs, how can we expect anyone else to? So it's really, again, radical self-responsibility for self, and really making sure that you're reflecting your worthiness, you're reflecting your value by meeting your needs and knowing your needs are really important and valid. So rather than always needing someone else to give you something, because often if we're seeking love or acceptance externally, it can be coming from that place of, I'm not worthy of this, I'm not good enough, I'm unlovable. So there's a layer here of tuning into, maybe is there a belief or a story that's telling you I don't actually deserve the thing that I'm asking for? And so how can we start to rewrite that story? How can you start to give to yourself those needs and really meet those needs? And then the other piece that I notice shows up a lot in relationships and in boundary setting is a need to control. So this is when we try to maybe set boundaries from a place of fear and wanting to put these walls up to protect because we've been hurt in the past. And so that need to control can really be an indicator that you're not feeling safe. And so sometimes we don't set boundaries, or we try to put these really rigid boundaries from a place of fear because there's this level of unsafety. So this is a really big piece that I work with clients. It's really the first foundational pillar that we need in place in order to do that deeper work. And so creating safety is really, really important, and we need to create it within ourselves. Many of us, because there is so much past trauma and pain and hurt, you'll find that there is this sense of I'm not safe in my body, I'm not safe in the world, and we are in this constant state of fear, anxiety, panic. And when we're in chronic anxiety, we tend to drop into depression from time to time because our body can't handle that much activation for a long period of time. And so there can be a lot of dis-ease and disharmony in your state of being, in your life, if you're not feeling safe. So a really powerful way to start creating inner safety is starting to really practice connecting to your body. So on my app, Raw Embodiment, I do have a felt sensation practice which really supports the reconnection to your body. You can also do different grounding practices and just reminding yourself that you're safe and getting really coming into self-inquiry around what is creating that unsafety, what is within you that is creating that unsafety, what is unresolved within you, because a lot of the time it's trauma and pain that is still stored in the body, and so it creates this sense of I'm not safe in my body because there's so much pain here. So when we start to integrate that pain and it releases, it no longer has power over us. We start to feel safe in our body again. We start to feel connected again, and we start to feel more like our authentic self. We're really shedding the layers that aren't truly us, all that pain, all of that stuff that we've been carrying for years, and we actually start to rebirth our authentic self. And all of this that I've just shared really will guide you into having the most incredible, transformational, empowering, fulfilling relationships. It is a journey. I have shared a lot here. It does take some time to really embody this and practice this and show up fully in this way. That's why I offer the containers that I do, the different programs and one-on-one coaching, different things like this to really support you in this process, because a lot comes up in this journey, a lot comes up in this space, and you want to really make sure you're supported. I also find a big piece is that because you're the one you're living your life, you are often in the eye of the storm, and it can be really challenging to see the bird's eye view, what's really going on here. And so having someone to really hold space for you and support you through that process is really, really powerful, and will exponentially amplify your journey, amplify your healing, your integration, and will get you from A to B so much faster, so much smoother. And you're just going to start to really feel that safety, that security, that ability to be with all the things that are arising for you. So finding that support system for yourself is highly, highly recommended. This is not a journey we do alone. All right, so that is my 7 tips. I'm just going to recap. So there's transparency, authenticity, there is clear intention, take a pause, really tuning into when you maybe are projecting, blaming, grasping, or needing to control. So I hope this helped. I'd love to hear your feedback and what you received from this, what really resonated. If you have any follow-up questions, just pop them all in the comments below and I will get to them as soon as I can. Sending you so much love. If you're feeling called to join me for Authentic Boundaries Live, reach out. We can have a chat to see if this container is the right one for you. Have the most beautiful day.